Well, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Chase with Jace, and as always, yeah, pretty good title, huh, Matt?
Mm, mm.
Yeah, the Chase with Jace, and with another episode, and we get a chance. Obviously, LSU keep LSU fans informed. Been going to all the LSU practices. Been posting all my LSU practice reports on gridironfootballusa.com. But it's always great to get another voice, another opinion from one of Louisiana's best, and that's Matt Moscona from ESPN 1045, host of After Further Review. So, Matt, is always great to get another former Catholic High Bear, and talk
I
about
was
the
waiting
LSU
on it,
Tigers.
dog. Hey, bro, if you didn't do it, I was going to do it. Calic High, go Bears.
Absolutely, Matt. Absolutely. So, to me, this is my third year covering LSU football, and it seems like this offseason, this fall, it feels like this is going by really faster than the previous two. I mean, it's just like just as soon as we started. I mean, fast forward, we're already a week away from another week from LSU kicking it off against USC. So, Matt, I mean, just early fall. I mean, I guess like I wouldn't say early, but your fall camp reactions to this point, another season, Brian Kelly entering year number 3 after back-to-back 10-win seasons. So in fall camp, Matt, has your really opinion on LSU, has it really changed at all for you after seeing a couple of practices already?
Yeah, I think so. And by the way, Jace, this is number 18 for me. Bro, it goes in a hurry, man.
Mm-hmm.
It goes by fast. And man, there's guys that have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll never hear me complain, man. We get to go talk about the Tigers. We get to talk about football. It's an amazing job. So has my opinion changed? I think so. And coming into camp, I listen. I thought the offense was still going to be good, and as ridiculous as it sounds, when you lose a Heisman-winning cornerback and 2 first-round picks at receiver, and your Broyles Award-winning or Broyles Award finalist offensive coordinator, to say, you're not going to miss a beat offensively, that sounds stupid. but man, like, they have such an embarrassment of riches at receiver. You've seen it. You've been out there. Shelton Sampson's a former 5-star. He's maybe the number 6 guy right now. It's ridiculous. I think Garrett's waited his turn. He checks every box. He just needs to play. The offensive line is arguably the best LSU's ever had. They've never had a line that's had 2 first-round picks, and there's a chance that with Will Campbell and Emory Jones that happens. So, I mean, this is legitimately in the conversation for the best offensive line LSU's ever had. So I think the offense is going to be great. I figured the defense, Jace, was going to be better because when you're literally the worst defense in the history of the program, it's hard to be worse. You would have to be, again, the worst defense in the history of the program.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were 108 in total defense. They were 118th in passing defense. They allowed more points and yards than any defense ever in LSU history. They were awful. So I knew they'd be better, but the question is how much better. And I think the thing that has struck me is when we watch them, I think you'll agree with this, but when we go watch them in like individual periods,
Mm-hmm.
the offense gets dusted because like there's no pass rusher that can beat Will Campbell one-on-one. There's no DB that can lock down Kyron Lacey. Like there's no Derek Stingley on this team. There's no Patrick Peterson, Morris. That guy's not there. But when they go to team and they actually play football,
Right.
the defense always makes plays. They always get stops.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a great credit to Blake Baker, who is looking at his roster and said, look, defensively in the secondary, we're going to simplify so we don't have the coverage busts, and we're going to get creative with pressures. We watched you and I were there Saturday, and we watched the team period, right? And they were 11 on 11.
Mm-hmm.
And when Nuss threw that pick on the right sideline, when he was just trying to throw it away because he was being pressured, and he didn't get the ball out of bounds, and Woodland picked him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the pressure was a safety blitz from Kylan Jackson. Like, you don't have Arden Key on the edge who's just going to destroy some kid and go kill the quarterback. Sack Lamar Jackson 4 times in a game or whatever it was. But you're creative enough and athletic enough to generate pressure and confuse offenses. And I think that's been encouraging. I think undeniably they're better on defense. I don't know how much better. I'm not telling you they're like a top 10, top 20, top 30 defense, but like if you're a top 60 defense, just top half of the country,
Mhm.
you're dramatically better than you were a year ago, and you're in position to win any game you play. So I would say that's a long answer. I'm sorry, but like that would be my biggest takeaway is I think I've seen defensively as a unit, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and I think they're more than competent defensively. It's a big hat tip to the coaching staff.
And there's always a metrics, right, Matt? Like time of possession, turnover ratio. I mean, no matter for a normal football team, that's how you win and lose football games. But I feel like with this year's LSU football team, I feel like they're going to have to win the time of possession. They're going to have to win the turnover battle to really win a lot of their games this year. Just because I feel like from what I've seen, what we've seen in practice, Matt, I feel like with Baker's style, from what we've seen, that this defense, I'm sure you can probably agree to this statement, but it's probably going to be a high risk, high reward type of defense this year, just what we were able to see in practice and how they've been able to be pretty aggressive in practice.
Well, I don't know that I would go high risk because
Okay.
here's what. So, when we talked to Kelly on Saturday, he said a couple of things that really struck me, and you hit a couple of those points.
Mhm.
One was, I asked him the question, and I left it pretty open ended. Not pretty open ended. I left it totally open ended. I said, from day one, where did you have trepidation day one of fall camp that now you feel better about? And I didn't say offense, defense. There was no leading question. It was just wide open. So whatever he said was going to be, the first thing on his mind. And he started talking about the secondary. And he said, I think we can cover on the outside. And we had to eliminate the big play. And we've done that. And what they did, Jace, was they simplified to make sure the 16-yard completion doesn't become a 60-yard
Right.
completion. Like,
Mhm.
just think about the opener last year against Florida State, that pass over the middle to Keon Coleman, where two LSU defenders ran into each other and Coleman has a house call.
Mhm.
Well, I think what LSU has done is they've simplified defensively to make sure that they're going to give up yards and they're going to give up completions. But I think the key is make that team go 8, 9, 10 plays down the field, and you're going to give up conversions and you're going to give up 12 and 15-yard passes, and that's fine. Just don't give up the 60-yarder.
Mhm.
And I think they've done that. So so to your point about risk, I think they've reduced the risk on the back end. Now they'll take some shots rushing the passer,
Sure. Sure.
creatively. Um, and then the other thing too, you were talking about, ball control.
Mhm.
The other thing Kelly said was, he said offensively, we need to simplify because we're trying to do everything right now. He said, we need to do what we do well. We need to run the football, take our shots, and get the ball to our athletes. Well, the first thing he said is run the ball.
Yeah.
And Jace, look, I'm not trying to give anybody PTSD, about Les Miles offense with two tights and a fullback and 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But the reality is, when your defense stinks, a good ball control offense is a good defense
Oh yeah.
because you're keeping
Absolutely.
the other offense on the sideline. So
Absolutely.
I do think. Do you remember the first press conference that we heard from Brian Kelly in fall camp,
Mhm.
and he was talking about Josh Williams? He was like,
Right.
"You're
Yeah.
not going to see much of Josh Williams in camp. We just need to get him to Saturday."
Mhm.
Basically saying, we know what he can do. We just got to get him healthy to Saturday because we're going to ride him. And I think they're going to do that, man. You've got an elite offensive line, a 6-year running back, a bowling ball in Caleb Jackson. I think they're going to play a lot of ball control this year, man.
Mhm.
I think they're going to try to shorten games, protect their defense that way, take their shots, hit big plays. But I don't think you're going to see the 3-play, 85-yard, 37-second drives from this team. I think
Right.
they're going to try to possess the ball longer to shorten the game and protect their defense.
And it makes a lot of sense, man. Like to your point, when you're replacing Jaden Daniels, you're going to take it off and run for 50, 60 yards on any given play, and replacing him, and you got those two big weapons and Neighbors and Thomas. I mean, it was a big strike, big play offense, but what we've seen in practice on offense, I mean, you've seen a bunch of screens, you've seen a bunch of guards, tackles pulling out in front, and it seems like this is going to be a more of a ball control possession type of offense, but with the ability to make the big play because you have a guy like Garen Nussmeyer that has the arm to make the big play. We've seen
Yeah,
it.
they're going to take their shots. But I think the creativity has been fun too. That was one of my questions was, okay, you lose a super veteran play caller in Mike Denbrock. And I think the world of Joe Sloan. And he did call plays for a year at Tech, but this is still new. So there's going to be like some learning curve as to what this is going to look like. But man, on Saturday, we're out there watching the scrimmage in the full contact period. They're running goal line. And man, they ran a counter to the right, throwback to Xavion Thomas on the left side. They ran a jet sweep with Xavion Thomas. They ran a play where they went too tight, but Mason Taylor was in the game and lined up as a fullback, as a lead blocker on power, and they faked power and went to Kamorian Pimpton on the right side, right inside the pylon for an easy touchdown. Like, there's a lot of creativity there as well. So I don't want to, again, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to plant a seed in anybody's mind like this is going to be what we saw with Les Miles, like where they're just going through a shell offensively. No, it ain't going to be that. But I think there's a way to be creative, to move the ball, and still shorten the game with what they didn't do a year ago. And I think that's a great way to protect your defense.
Yeah, I mean, more time you can take the quarterbacks from the opposing team now on the field. I mean, that's going to help you even more. And I feel like one of the biggest position groups, and that's even with losing the guy through fall camp, has been a big talk for the tight ends and how they've been able to play. And we've seen it. I mean, we've seen the big play ability of Trey Green, of him just high pointing the football and just mossing people. And you've seen the same thing with Kempton. And you have these luxury of tight ends. We know that Brian Kelly loves the tight ends. And he even said in the last time Brian Kelly had a press conference, he talked about using 12, 13 personnel. And it just seems like there's just an embarrassment of riches when you talk about the running backs, the receivers, and you add these three tight ends. I mean, I'm sure Joe Sloan is salivating the mouth right now to just use all these different types of formations and different looks, because I mean you have a lot of ability, especially with the personnel you have on your offense.
Yeah, my big question with the tight ends is, so like here's the easy scenario to envision, right? I mean, you look at Kamorian Pimpton, who's 6'6", and Trey Dez, who's 6'7", and I mean, Jace, you've been out there, you've seen it. Like the flash is unbelievable. It's just like I don't mean to sound like, I mean, I'm sure, like, I don't mean to be like an LSU homer guy. I'm not that. I think most people know that, but it's like there's just a physical, there's a level of athletic gift that you just look at Trey Green and you go, okay, I get why he was a 5-star. I mean, he's 6'7", he's a pterodactyl. He jumps like he caught a touchdown in the corner of the end zone on Saturday over PJ Woodland, where it was just like he elevated like a whale out of water, and you're like, oh my God. I mean, there's nothing you can do with that.
There's so much you can do, yeah.
But here's my point. We said the same thing about Kamorian Pimpton a year ago.
We did.
And Pimpton had no role on the team. So Mason Taylor, Kamorian Pimpton, Trey Green, they're all insanely capable. But if you're going to put those three on the field, who are you taking off the field? You're going to take Kyron Lacey off? I don't want Kyron Lacey off the field. You take Chris Hilton, his game-breaking ability, off the field. CJ Daniels, who's a 1,000-yard receiver. You're in a goal line situation. You have to have a catch for a touchdown. You want the guy who's the most accomplished receiver on your team off the field? Like, who do you take off the field? So that's the problem, I think. I mean, problem.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, right. That's the problem Joe Sloan has. Like, I mean, I could sit here and say, look, if Trey Green was on the field for 50 snaps a game, I could see a world where he gets 45, 50 receptions, is a 800-yard receiver with 6-7 touchdowns as a freshman. I could see that. I just don't know that there's that many snaps this year. Right. I think they're all capable. I think we'll see it. I just don't think we're going to see it as much as we think, because ultimately when it comes down to it, man, you're playing Ole Miss. It's the third quarter of a tie ball game. You got 3rd and goal at the 6. You taking the senior 1,000-yard receiver off the field, put a true freshman on there? Because I'm not. I'm trusting CJ Daniels to get open and catch the ball when I throw it to him. So I'll be curious to see how they use him. But man, there is no shortage of options, man.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, and we talk about the receivers, and even though you're replacing two first round picks and Neighbors and Thomas, you're arguably even deeper at that position, at the wide receiver position, just because of so many options you really have to throw the ball. And we talk about the offense, we talk about the weapons and the offensive line. We know how really good that group is on the offensive line. But I know the coaching staff's really high on DJ Chester, and I know they've been
Mhm.
experimenting with Garrett Dellinger getting some snaps, and he's proven that he can do it before in the game. He played against Florida State, but
Oh,
just
I
when you
don't think that's an experiment they want
well,
to
I
try
guess
again, dog.
yeah,
That was bad.
I mean, I guess any
Now, granted,
experience,
now, granted, that was the first time he had snapped the football. I think he said since like high school,
Mhm.
or maybe ever. I don't. Maybe I'm thinking Liam Shanahan from Harvard, but
Oh yeah,
um, well, so on Saturday, Chester was absent. He had the stomach bug that Brian Kelly talked about, and so Cohen Eccles, the freshman, took the reps with the ones, and then Dellinger rotated in. I think Dellinger at center is an emergency option
hmm
because if, like, hypothetically, and knock on wood, but if Chester can't go, and then you have to move Dellinger over, now you're affecting two spots on your offensive line. Now you got to back up at two spots.
right.
So I think the ideal situation is always like get your best five out there. And maybe that means moving Dellinger to center and Tyree Adams at guard. And they tried that this past
Mhm.
weekend. We saw that. I mean, I think Tyree Adams is their sixth guy.
Right, the swing.
I think he's number six. But I think they're also looking at Cohen Eccles saying, "Okay, kid, like, can you do it if we need you to?" Just look, man. They did that last year at Missouri with DJ Chester.
hmm
We saw them, rotate three players at that position last year. We saw Chester against Missouri. So,
Missouri, yep.
I think best case scenario, they all stay healthy and they're great all year.
Yep.
If something happens with Chester, um, I hope they're confident in Eccles, but
hmm
it's a tough ask for a freshman to go play on the line of scrimmage in the SEC, man. It just is. But
Yeah.
you can say, well, Campbell and Jones did it. Yeah, they did, but that's also the first time ever LSU had, like, in 100 and how would 1893 do the math for me? I'm bad at math. 130 years of football.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you have two freshman offensive tackles. So um either way, man, I think they're good on the line. Eccles
Mhm.
has been impressive. Tyree Adams has grown he flashes, he's grown tremendously. Even the future, man. Watch Ori Williams get a lot of good reps. And
Mhm.
I think Bo Bordelon has over 3 years has developed his body physically, and we've seen him play both tackle and guard. Like, that's a guy, man, if you in a pinch you had to put Bo Bordelon in the game, I'm not telling you he's going to be all SEC, but he's a very capable player.
Mhm.
They're good, man. Brian Kelly came in with the reputation of knowing how to recruit and develop offensive linemen, and he has lived up to that. And a huge hat tip to Brad Davis. But
Oh yeah.
I mean, Jace, it's not just that first group, man. They are deep and talented and really good on the offensive line. They're going to be good for a long time, even after those great players this year graduate and go pro.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, that's why it's even key to watch their development this year, because a lot of those guys on the first team are going to be gone. So you need that second
Four,
group up
yeah,
that four.
you're losing
Right.
four.
Yeah. So it's very important to get that second group really develop and ready in position, because there's a lot of young guys in that second group, talented guys, but a lot of really young guys. And obviously, on the Chase with Jace, we're joined with ESPN 1045's Matt Moscona from After Further Review. And once again, always appreciate his time. And I got a couple minutes left. But yeah, Matt, we talked about the defensive side of the football a little bit, with Blake Baker and what he really wants to do. And I know the question mark really going to fall camp has been the interior of that defensive line. I mean, everybody knows about Jacoby and Guillory coming back as that key piece, but just from a depth standpoint, I know Brian Kelly said that he has five guys that he likes right now, just at least rotating in for those five guys inside. What do you think
Hey, who
about
do
it?
you think? Hey, who do you think is the fifth? Because so, like, we know,
Yeah.
all right, Guillory's the best guy they got. That's a
Mhm.
given.
Yep.
Paez has run ones as long as he's been out there, the Wisconsin transfer. Then we've seen Jalen Lee is the next one up anytime someone's out. So that's 3. Sean Washington's 4.
Washington would be 4.
So then it comes down to either Kimo Makanayoli or Dom McKinley as your 5. So Brian said on Friday, he's like, we're rotating 5 guys. So it's one of those 2 is next. And I don't know which one he was talking about.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Donovan McKinley's just 5-star. I mean, interior defensive lineman, and he's played defensive line. And Kimo Makanoli.
Kimo's been around for 4 years. I know he's just moving to D-line, but he's a veteran player.
Right. So, I mean, that's going to be another question.
It's probably Dom.
Probably is Dom.
I mean, the thing about McKinley, and I know people who follow recruiting know the name, and LSU was fired up to get him and flip him from A&M, kid from Acadiana. He is massive. Like, he is like the all-airport team. He's 6'6", 320, and you're like, Jesus, who is that? Oh, I get why he was a 5-star. But the thing is, when you go watch him, and I spent a lot of time in fall camp just standing watching Bo Davis teach the defensive linemen, because I think it's fascinating, Jace. Like, he's as physical and aggressive as that position is. Bo Davis, he, don't get me wrong, like, he wants physicality and aggressiveness, and he is very hard on his guys.
Yeah, he likes one certain letter, 4-letter word.
Yeah.
Like
it is NSFW. And by the way, on Saturday, so on Saturday was like Parent Day, so they invited the families to come watch practice. Bo Davis didn't care that your mama was standing right there. He was not changing the way he coaches. I mean, all of the George Carlin, dirty words. Anyway,
old school. You got to tell the kids put earmuffs.
Yes. And by the way, no judgment whatsoever. Like, the dude's incredible. That's not in any way a criticism. It was just funny to watch. But my point is, the way he technically teaches defensive line is so interesting, because like they'll do bag work, for example, and they'll start with a punch, and then they'll do like a punch and a rip, and a swim, and then he builds upon, and it's like, it's so much about hands. Everything he is teaching them is hands, and you wouldn't think that with defensive line. You would think, well, it's just big guys slamming bodies, but he is teaching them almost like Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off, paint the fence. It's like all that stuff. And I think so all that to say, we're talking about McKinley. I think that's the biggest growth curve Don McKinley has. He is giant, but he's got to get aggressive at the point of attack. He's got to learn to stay low and use leverage. He's got to work on his hands. It's just, he's a raw kid, man. He's freaking 18 years old. But the upside is undeniable. It's almost like Ricky Collins at quarterback. Like, you can watch Ricky spin it and run, and you go, okay, that's different. But he just hadn't played. Like, he's just got to develop as a SEC quarterback. Same with Don McKinley. But the ceiling is high, but you only start to ascend to that ceiling if you play. So I think it's probably McKinley is probably that guy that would rotate in as the 5th.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, just because of how highly regarded he was, and obviously the potential he really has, and it's going to be a key piece. How good this LSU team can be is how this group can really come together. But you got some pretty good ends on the edges to really help this defense, and we've seen like Swinson and Womack and Savion Jones, like, every now and then. It hasn't been that much, obviously, but they would win a rep every now and then against an Emory Jones or Will Campbell, which is a really good sign, because you're not going to play against tackles like that every day every week.
Yeah, that happened on Saturday. So when Swinson beat Will Campbell, that was the first time in fall camp that I'd seen Will Campbell lose a one-on-one rep. Yep. I mean, he's so good, it's almost boring. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't know if anybody knows anyone in whatever they do like that, where it's like you watch someone who's so good at something, it's almost boring. It's like, oh, well, Will Campbell's going to win this one. It's, I think they're good at end, like, not good by comparison, like good. I think they have good players. I don't think they have all Americans. Like, I don't think it's Mingo and Montgomery. Don't misunderstand me. But Savion Jones is 6'6", 285. and has played a ton of football and is really good at left end. He kind of reminds me, think Cam Jordan. I'm not saying he's going to go to the NFL and get 150 sacks. What I'm saying is he's a giant end who's got some agility that is going to be a really good run stuffer that can also rush the passer. I think Braden Swinson was your best pass rusher last year among your linemen. I mean, Perkins was your best guy, but I mean among your linemen. Deshaun Womack has had some really nice plays. He'll rotate in. And then I do think Gabe Relaford and Kalaj Cobbins have the potential to be like Sam Montgomery and Barkevius Mingo were, because those dudes are awesome. Like, those are two freshmen who look like what they're supposed to look like. I mean, when Cobbins does pass rush drills, they can't block him. And it doesn't matter. Like, he's not going against Will Campbell. I would love to see that, by the way, Jace. I would love to see them give Kalaj a run against Will Campbell just to see what it looks like.
See how he measures up, right?
Yes. But every time he goes against the twos or the threes, they can't block him. He wins every rep. Like, those two dudes are, like, I'm telling you, I don't know what their role is this year. Maybe situational third down. They might get a rep here or there. I don't think it's going to be much because of all the guys we talked about. I didn't even mention a guy like Paris Shand who can play inside or out. But Relaford and Cobbins, when they get to their second and third years, those guys could be all SEC or all American. They could be. You don't have any of those guys right now, but you have guys that are really good collegiate and SEC players that I think are going to win plenty. I think that's probably the best spot on the defense is defensive end. I think that's probably where the deepest and most talented today.
Right. And another position group that you, feel pretty good about is obviously the linebackers. I mean, Harold Perkins obviously leads that group, but they're
we may disagree on that, man. I think there's a ton that still needs to be decided there. They may be good, Jace. They may be, but I have reservations about Perkins moving inside. However, we have seen them use him more like a queen piece on the chessboard. Like, he ain't lining up like Dick Butkus, standing in the middle, eating double teams from guards and trying to make tackles. He does some of that, but they move him all over. Like, he's going to move all over.
Sure.
Greg Penn is a good player. I think lacks some athleticism. People are very high on
solid piece, right?
Yeah.
Kind of just solid, steady.
People are very high on Whit Weeks, and he flashed a lot last year. I think he could be the best of the bunch. And West Weeks, Blake Baker's raved about him. And look, even Saturday when we were watching the scrimmage, he had a big run stuff on second and goal. But that's 4. And Perkins is kind of like, yeah, he's an inside backer, an off-ball backer, but not really. I don't think you have great depth. And aside from Perkins, none of those guys have actually been really consistent players at this level. So I still think they got a lot to prove. I'm not saying I want to be clear. I'm not saying they can't.
Sure.
I'm just saying they got a lot to prove. I still have a lot that I have to see there in a game. Maybe, Jace, maybe it's like a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. But they went down this road with Harold last year and moving him to off-ball linebacker. And then after one game, they moved him back to nickel Sam. So maybe I just got to see it.
Yeah, see it again, right? It makes sense. I mean, after last year and moving Harold inside and how that obviously didn't work out last year. And I mean, everybody's going to talk about how Baker's going to use Harold Perkins, and the other big question mark on defensively is how the secondary is going to look. And you elaborated at the very beginning of the show about how Brian Kelly has been pleased with how the secondary has the cornerbacks really matched up with the receivers and how they progress. But yeah, it seems like a lot of moving pieces. But it seems like for the most part that they've stuck with some of the major guys at those positions, whether it's been the safety, the star position, the cornerback position. It seems like it's been pretty solid for the most part, considering coming in, you thought they'd be moving a lot more.
Yeah, I think they got their ones. Stamps and Sage Ryan are going to be your corners. Jordan Gilbert and Jordan Allen will be your safeties. And Major Burns will be the star. Now, I also think they're going to rotate a ton because we saw on Saturday they ran Kylan Jackson at safety. They ran, we saw Javen Toviano at star. I think he's surpassed Juwan Johnson as the number 2 at star. And I think the big wild card is Zy Alexander. Zy was your best corner last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then he tore his ACL against Army. We all know the story.
Mm-hmm.
And he's practiced without any limitation, but they keep saying it just takes a while to get used to pushing off and planting and pivoting on that knee. If Zy Alexander gets back to the form of a year ago, then I think what you could see happen is Stamps and Zy Alexander be your starting corners.
Right.
And then you move Sage Ryan to safety and Jordan Allen comes off the field. I think Allen would be, and I'm not trying to pick on the kid, I just think that he would be, of those guys I just mentioned, probably the least certain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sage Ryan's natural position is safety, and he's never gotten to play it at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
So I think your best lineup at their best would be Stamps and Zy. Again, at their best at corner. It's just a matter of if he's at that level or gets back to that level this year or ever. And I don't know if he will. I hope he does.
Oh, yeah.
But it was interesting to see Kylan Jackson, man. I mentioned, the pick that Nussmeier threw in the scrimmage to Woodland on the throwaway came on a safety blitz, and it was Kylan Jackson running with the first team back there. Jordan Gilbert's a lock. Jordan Gilbert is an SEC safety all day. He is a lock. He will start. He's number 2. Get to know the number and the name. He's athletically gifted. He's athletically an SEC guy. He started at A&M. He is all day, every day, a starting safety in the SEC. I'm not telling you he's an All-American, but he will start and will play and won't come off the field. It's the other spot where you look and go, okay, is Jordan Allen going to lock that, or does he have some competition from the younger guys?
And that's a conversation we've had a lot in practice because of Zy and how far along he is in coming back and playing and being in part of that starting lineup. But for you right now, if we're up to you, Matt, would you keep, let's say, week 1 against USC and Zy's not 100% ready to go? Would you keep Sage at corner, or would you be more comfortable with putting him at safety and having maybe like a J.K. Johnson, P.J. Woodland, somebody, whoever, insert at that corner spot?
Well, considering you've spent the last 3 weeks with Stamps and Sage as your corners, I think that's where you go. And Sage played all last year at corner. If you were playing nickels in week 1, then I think you could say, hey, PJ, go take the start at corner and let's see how that goes. Get your feet wet. Or J.K. Johnson. But you don't have that luxury. Not when you're playing USC. You got to put. I mean, Sage Ryan has played 30. How many games? I don't have the number in front of me. 35, 40 career games, something like that. I mean, he's got to be on the field. I get the LSU. I know LSU fans. He came in as a 5-star. He hasn't played to that level, but he also has never played his natural position. He's played nickel. He's played boundary corner. He's a safety. He hasn't played safety. If he played safety, you'd probably have a completely different conversation about him. I admire a lot when a guy lessens his own individual stock for the betterment of the team, and that's what Sage Ryan's done. So I commend him for that. But yeah, week 1 against SC, I think first play of the game, Stamps and Sage are your corners. But the one we hadn't talked about, Jace, is Jair Brown, because he's the first team nickel. And when you're playing SC, and if they're gonna spread you out, you need 5 DBs on the field, then Jair Brown's the one that goes on the field as nickel, and he's looked really good in that role.
Yeah, he's flashed. He's flashed a lot of PBUs, had a couple picks in practice when we seen him out there. So he has flashed. And finally, this is a really a position group which hasn't remember the third phase, of the game, and
I
which
was
has
waiting
not
for it,
been.
man. I was wondering if you were
Yeah,
going to get to it.
I mean, you have to. I mean, coming, of course, talking about LSU and the Brian Kelly. I mean, we have to mention the special teams, and I know it has been less than ideal. Let's say that in the third phase of the game. But I mean, we've seen a little bit. I mean, we've seen a lot punt. So we got a lot of opportunity to
Yeah.
see Austin Dorf and Peyton Todd go battle for that starting job. And it's the same answer pretty much as from spring. It's been really inconsistent from both guys. And Brian Kelly said that, I mean, you probably won't be surprised if you throw both of them out there and see what they do. And yeah, there's just a lot of question marks from not only the punt game, but I mean, you bring in Xavier Thomas, and you feel like that's what he's came here to do. Is to really pick that up as in the punt return game. But what are your thoughts on the punting situation right now, Matt?
As bad as they've been in special teams, the one given you had was Jay Bramblett.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize this, but last year, LSU's opponents. Do you know the number? Do you know how many punts were returned against LSU last year, Jace? Do you know that number?
Not off the top of my head, but it
Okay.
wasn't really much.
13 games.
Yeah.
13 games.
Mhm.
How many times did an LSU opponent return a punt? Not how many times did LSU punt. How many times did an opponent return a punt? Yes.
0.
2.
2.
2 for -1 yards. Jay Bramblett was awesome.
Mhm.
And we didn't talk about him because Jaden Daniels won the Heisman and the defense was atrocious. So there were bigger storylines than the punter. But Jay Bramblett was great. Now he's gone. And Peyton Todd and Blake Oxendorf, it's incredible, man. I'll watch them punt at least for a little bit every practice. And man, I'll watch Oxendorf kick 160 in the air. And then the next one is like a 90-degree angle, like 15 yards. I'm like, what just happened?
Is the same guy out there? Right.
I don't know what they're going to do. I kind of think Oxendorf, because he's been this is his 7th year of college football. And he was all conference last year at Tech. I kind of think he probably gets the nod. I say that with very little confidence, but I could also see a scenario where it's situational. Like Peyton Todd's greatest attribute is he can kick the hell out of the ball. So if you're back deep and you're like, hey, I need someone to just go boom it, I think Todd could do that. If you're at your own 45 and you need to try to pin him inside the 10, maybe that's Oxendorf. I think when Brian Kelly says they may use both of them, I think that's what he may mean at this point. But, I mean, my guess is as good as this remote control's guess. I just flip a coin at this point. Neither one of them has proven it, which is why that's still open for discussion through 3 weeks.
And we have one more week of fall camp. I mean, 2 more availability. And once again, Brian Kelly's been gracious with the time that we're able to go out there and witness pretty much when we're out there, majority of the whole practice, at least outside. I mean, I know they got the indoor session going on, but at least for outside, we've definitely seen a lot. Just, I guess, like when we have one more week, obviously we have practice availability on Wednesday, and then most likely the scrimmage on Saturday. What do you want to see with just one more week of fall camp? And obviously, of course, game week is next week. But what do you want to see maybe over the next 2 availabilities for the LSU Tigers?
Well, most importantly, stay healthy, but that's a cop out. We all want that. I want to see Garrett Nussmeier not turn the ball over, because I feel like every time we watch a team period, we see a turnover. We mentioned the interception on the sideline on the attempted throwaway last week. They were in team, and Harold Perkins deflected a ball at the line, and Parrish Shand intercepted it. I can go back to the very first day of practice. Garrett Nussmeier, in the first team period we saw, was going deep left corner toward the pylon for Mason Taylor, threw it in double coverage. It was picked by Ashton Stamps. And I think that's the one giant question about Nussmeier. He checks every box, Jace. He's got size and arm strength and great leadership ability and moxie, almost like, confidence bordering on athletic cockiness. He's a leader, son of a coach, football IQ. He got all of it. He's got all of it. He just hasn't played a ton, so sometimes he makes those mistakes. And if he could purge those mistakes, I think he could be great. Not good, great. But he's got to purge those mistakes because, man, look, on Saturday we're out there. They run a drive in 11 on 11. They start at their own 30. 4 plays, boom, they're at the opponent 31. I mean, just boom, 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 right down the field. And then he throws that pick to Woodland. It's like they're going to move the ball. They have so much talent. He can't get them beat, man. Like that's what I would love to see. If I have one singular question on offense, that's it. Everything else, they're going to be great. Just protect the football.
Yeah, and that comes back to the point of the turnover margin. I feel like that's going to be a big stat for LSU this year, and the time of possession is going to be really key for this team. So yeah, you won't see Garrett Nussmeier throw that into the stands, entire stadium, and that play's not out there. Don't give a defender an opportunity to make a play, and I mean that's what we saw on Saturday when PJ Woodland made that interception. Matt, I know you represent. You see, you're wearing the LouisianaSports.net shirt. And I know the website just opened and everything. So tell us about LouisianaSports.net and what's cranking up on the brand new website.
Yeah, thanks, Jace. Our ambition is to super serve the Louisiana sports fan. The same way that we built and grew 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge on the audio side. We, 7 years ago, moved into the video space with our video studios. We've ramped up our video coverage, I think, as most people have seen on YouTube and other platforms. The last frontier was the written word, and we wanted to make sure we served those sports fans as well. So that's LouisianaSports.net. We hired Ross Jackson to anchor our Saints coverage. Hunt Palmer will lead our LSU coverage. We hired Chris Marler, who many people might remember from Saturday Down South. He's on all social media as Vern Funquist. So he'll handle our social media and all our SEC content. And our plan is ultimately to have a dedicated Pelicans beat writer, a recruiting reporter, someone to handle prep, someone to handle state schools, all the news there. But we had to start with the two biggest pillars, and that was LSU and the Saints. And we launched last week, and we're thrilled. And so, as we start on this journey, and by the way, we're totally free. No paywall, no freemium, completely free. No subscriptions ever, not at least not as long as I'm involved. If they ever say we're going to that model, then I'll quit. But I just want to super serve sports fans, and hopefully everyone will give us a shot. And I would love feedback as well, man. If anybody we're brand new, so if there's something we're not doing you'd love to see, please let us know. And we'd love feedback. But we're here to serve the sports fan and bring people content they want, just like we did in audio and video space. Now we're trying to do it in the written format as well.
And finally, Matt, anything going on? I mean, after further review, I mean, on weekdays 3 to 6, ESPN 104.5. I know
Nah,
y'all.
nothing's going on, Jace.
Yeah, nothing. Same old, same old. Huh?
Man, hard to believe, man. February will be year 15 for me
Wow.
on AFR. And our station's been, I'm very grateful to everybody who's watched and listened over the years, man. We've grown from a tiny little low power FM 2 hour a day show when I was 27 years old to arguably the biggest brand in Louisiana sports right now. I mean, it's what 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge has become. So it's been an honor, man. I would say it beats digging ditches and building the
Right.
railroad, man. As long as people pay me to talk about sports, I'll keep doing it. I feel really blessed,
Right.
man.
Right. Especially we know the heat out there when we're out there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so we definitely appreciate those guys out there. Once again, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show with me, talking some LSU football. I know you've helped me a whole lot, when I was at Catholic, trying to get into this field as well. So I know you've been a
Yeah, man.
mentor.
Known you a long time, man. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Matt. Appreciate it. So make sure to keep up with Matt Moscona, ESPN 104.5, and obviously LouisianaSports.net too. A great website. Checked it out. Very clean. It's looking really nice,
Thank
and
you.
I'm looking forward to catch up with the coverage. And then obviously for us, GridironFootballUSA.com. We got LSU coverage as well daily, so make sure to check us out as well. GridironFootballUSA.com. But for Matt Moscona, I'm Jace Luzerne from The Chase with Jace, and we'll see you next time on another exciting edition of The Chase with Jace as the Tigers begin year number 3 of the Brian Kelly era.